What if you could use N8N and AI to generate engaging videos with your own personal avatar with AI B-roll just like this? I'm Steven's AI avatar. Notice in this video we can seamlessly add AI-generated B-roll. We can also add AI-generated music as a backtrack with captions. To put this video together, I used N8N, HeyGen, Midjourney, Kling, and the No-Code Architects Toolkit, which helped me stitch everything together. It's a totally free tool that you can download and use today. By the end of this video, you'll have a fully automated process in N8N to generate AI videos with AI B-roll and captions. First, I'm going to demo the system that generated the video you just saw. Then we'll build out a new system from scratch so that you can see how to think about these problems to help you build custom solutions for you or your clients. So here's the agenda. We're going to demo the system. We're going to set up Airtable. Then we're going to build out the automations in N8N. We'll generate the AI video, the B-roll segments, the B-roll images, the B-roll videos. We'll add captions, and make sure to stick around to the end where I'll show you some additional advanced techniques and a special N8N trick for managing your test and production URLs within your webhooks, which can be a real pain when you're going back and forth between testing and putting your automations in production. If you're tired of trying to figure out how to build out all of these complex AI automations on your own, this video is for you. Let's get started. All right, so first let's go over a demo of how this system works. I've built out the database portion of the system in Airtable, and then I have two separate N8N automations that I built out to help me facilitate the different stages that we have to go through in order to build out the final video. So I'm calling this project AI Video plus B-roll Magic. We have three different tables across the top, which I'll explain in just a few minutes. On the left-hand side here, we can see all of the active videos that we're working on. Here we have 5 different videos that we've been testing with. And then we also have some views along the left-hand side here that allows us to facilitate our automation triggers. But basically the way this works, you just add a new video. This checkbox here allows you to control which is the active video, which is nice when you're working with your different segments so that you're only seeing the segments of the video you're working on instead of all of the segments, which looks a little bit more overwhelming like this. So this allows us to just focus in on the segments of the video we're working on so we can create B-roll for them. So if you notice, if I click on this here and jump back to segments, all of the segments are going to disappear because we haven't actually generated any yet. We can put in a description, YouTube demo number 2, and then you can add in your script for the video. Of course, you could auto-generate this as well. It's going to have a default width and height. Of course, you can change that if you want. Once you have the script in here, you can go ahead and click this checkbox to actually generate the AI video. That's going to trigger a backend automation here, which is going to reach out to HeyGen to turn that script into a AI video just like this. Notice if we skip through it, it doesn't have any captions. It's not going to have any music. It's simply going to be the video of you or me talking. And the service I'm using to create these AI videos is HeyGen, and you can see that our new video is now processing. You should be able to sign up for a free account and run a few tests. It will have a watermark, but it should let you test this without having a subscription. Because it takes a bit of time for all of this to generate, I'm going to jump back to a demo that is already complete. Here you can see the video just came back from HeyGen. So from here, what's going to happen is we are going to generate an SRT file. What that allows us to do is it takes the transcript and it breaks it up so that we have timestamps for the different segments of the video so that when we create B-roll, we know exactly what time to add those B-roll videos to the timeline of the video. So if we come back here, it looks like it was able to generate that SRT file. If I were to open this up here, we're going to see we now have an SRT file. And then from that SRT file, you can see that it's generating these different segments here. So basically we have the transcript of our video broken out by different start and end times and the duration of those different segments to allow us to decide which segments of the video we want to add B-roll to. So here, if I wanted to create B-roll on this segment here, I would simply check B-roll. Now what the system is going to do is that it's going to come down this automation here. It's going to generate an AI image prompt. It's going to request that image to be generated, and then it's going to go ahead and update our Airtable database. Here you can see we generated the AI prompt, create a photorealistic image of a modern recording studio filled with advanced technology. And then once it has that AI prompt, it's going to fall into this view here to actually generate an image. We'll wait for that image to come back, but obviously you could select other segments to include B-roll. Now that we have that image, we could take a look at the different options and then we could pick one. In this case, I'm going to go with image 2. Then what we'll do is upscale that image to a full resolution. That image will come back here. And then from there, it's going to go down this path here where we create an actual video from the image. Then once that video is generated, it'll pop back into Airtable where it is now animated. And now from here, of course, you could select other segments to generate B-roll from. And then once you've finished generating all of the videos for each segment that you want to create, you can jump back to videos, and from here we can assemble and overlay the B-roll over the original AI video by clicking this checkbox. This is going to trigger automations in the background to combine the video and the B-roll together in this automation here. Once that B-roll has been overlaid on the original video, it's going to use these other views to trigger additional operations to generate the AI music, then to mix the video and the music together, and then finally to add captions to the video. Here we have the automation to generate the music. Here we combine the video and the music. And here we add the captions. Here we have that music. Now it's mixed the video and the music together. And then finally, it's going to generate the video plus captions. And as you can see now, we have the video and the captions. We could play the video. I'm Steven's AI avatar. Notice in this video, we can seamlessly add AI generated B-roll. We can also add AI generated music as a backtrack video with overlay. Captions to put this video together. And so there we go. From here, we can manage all of our different videos. And of course, once we're done with a particular video, we can go ahead and archive it, and then it falls off of our list. Now, if you get to the end of the video and you want the exact and pre-built Airtable templates and N8N automations, make sure to jump into the No Code Architects community. You'll find them in the automation vault. And again, remember to stick around to the end. I'm going to show you a really cool way of handling your N8N webhooks between testing and production simply by modifying a variable here from production is false or true, and it'll automatically switch up your URLs to the proper automation on the back end inside N8N. Now, before we get into the build, remember there is a link in the description below that will take you to this document, which will allow you to cut and paste different resources into your automations that'll make this process a whole lot easier. All right, so I'm going to jump into Airtable. I'm going to create a new base from scratch. I'll go ahead and give it a title here, AI video plus B-roll magic, and we'll title this YouTube demo. I could rename these columns, but I'm going to go ahead and just delete them and start from scratch. We'll build out as much as we need to get started, and then we'll make some tweaks along the way. Now for the primary column, I'm going to go ahead and use an auto number field, auto number, and I will call this video ID. I'll go ahead and click save. This just gives each row its own unique ID. I'm going to go ahead and change the sort order to the video ID in reverse order, so we always have the newest video on top. Move the columns over. Then I'm just going to build out a bunch more columns, and then we'll format them and tweak them and modify them as we need to. Going to add the checkbox for active video. That will allow us to select the active video. Then I'll add the description. Then we'll add the video script. We'll use a long text. Then we'll go ahead and add the width and height of the video. I'll go ahead and use number columns for each of these. Width. I'm not going to show the thousandths separator. It doesn't really matter though. Don't need any decimal places. I'm going to go ahead and put the default at 1280 just so it doesn't default to 0. So when we create a new row, we'll have that there. Then I'll just duplicate this one, rename it to height, change the default to 720. Then I'm going to add a checkbox for video go when we're ready to generate the video. I'm going to add an attachment field for the video when it's generated, AI video. Then I'll go ahead and create a checkbox to trigger the process of combining the AI video with the B-roll that we generate. Video plus B-roll, create field. Then I'll go ahead and create another attachment field to hold the video that has the B-roll overlaid on top of it. Create field. Looks like I already used that name, so I'm just going to put a temporary name there so I can save it. Then I'm going to rename this to video plus B-roll go because it's a checkbox to trigger an automation. Then I can fix this. I also need to store the video SRT file. We'll add a URL, video SRT. I'll go ahead and add another URL here to store video transcript, but I don't know that we'll actually need it, but we'll just have it just in case. I'm going to go ahead and hide these two fields. We don't need to see them from a user perspective. They'll just be in the background and we'll use them, but we don't need to see them for our UI. I'm also going to come up here and add another attachment, and this one will be for the video plus captions. And I'm going to build a slightly more simplified version than this Airtable database here, just to keep things simple so this video doesn't get too long, and also to keep the cost down. You'll be able to build this out and then expand on it in the future, or you can grab this template from the No Code Architects community. I'm going to add two more fields here. I always add a formula. We'll call this record ID, and this just allows us to access the internal ID from Airtable in case we need that in our automations. Need to complete the close parentheses. So now we have that record ID. We don't need to see this from a user's perspective either. Go ahead and hide that. And then I'll go ahead and add the checkbox to archive the row when we're done. Go ahead and create that field. So now this looks good. I'm just going to tidy this up a bit. Spending a little bit of time on the column widths definitely helps with the user experience. And then finally, what we need to do is we need to create this segments table here and link it to the videos. I'm going to go ahead and just create that table from here. We're going to link to another record, going to create a new table. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to rename this to videos, and then I'll come back, link to another record, create a new table. And I did that because sometimes it uses this name in the linked table, and then I won't have to change it later. So here we're going to say segments. And then the new table name will also be called segments, and will allow linking to multiple records. Now we don't actually have to see this column here, but I'll go ahead and leave it for now because when we run our automations, it'll be nice to see it just to make sure it's working. I'm going to jump over to segments now. And here we have our new table. I'm going to go ahead and rename the primary column to segment ID, and we'll turn this into an auto number, confirm the change. Again, I'll sort by segment ID in reverse order. It's also going to automatically have this column here, which is the linked record column that we have over here. So when we added the linked record, we have segments on this side, but from segments, it will show us the videos. Again, we don't need to see this now, but I'll go ahead and leave it until we actually run the automations and we see this populating. As always, I'm going to go ahead and add a record ID to this column as well. Add a formula, record ID. We'll add that here, record. We'll go ahead and pre-select the suggestion. Then we just need to complete it with the close parenthesis, create field. We'll go ahead and hide this. We don't need to see it. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of lookup fields. We'll get that out of the way. What this is going to do is it's going to pull the width and a few other columns from the video table, which is linked with the particular segment. So we're going to go ahead and add the width and height. We'll grab the active video and also the description. Go ahead and add those fields now. So we've got those lookup fields. These are fields that we can go ahead and hide. We don't need to see them as a user when we're using the system. All right, so let's keep going. Going to add a long text segment SRT. So this is going to hold the individual segment from the video transcript. Go ahead and create that field. I'm going to go ahead and add a timestamps. I'll explain more about these as we go and build out the automations. Then I'm going to add another long text called SRT text. Again, this will become more clear as we go. Then I'm going to add a start and end time. For this, we're going to use the duration. We'll go with start time. And for this, we're going to go ahead and use this format right here. We can go ahead and create that field. I'll go ahead and duplicate and rename to end time. Then I'm going to create a duration, which is going to be a formula. I'll copy and paste that from my example here. You'll want to copy and paste this just as I have it. Go ahead and pause the video, drop that formula right here, create field. Now I'm going to add a checkbox. We'll call this B-roll. That'll help us select which segment should become B-roll. I'm going to go ahead here and add a long text For our AI image prompt that we'll need to develop our image, we'll go ahead and create field. Here I'm going to go ahead and add an attachment, AI image, create field. Then I'll add another attachment here. I'm going to call that video, which will hold the video generated from our AI image. And I think that's all we need for now. We might need more later, but we can go ahead and add those as we need. I'm going to go ahead and hide some of these fields that we just don't need. I'm going to move SRT text here, and I'm going to hide the segment SRT and also the timestamps. We'll leave the start time, just going to adjust the columns and the duration and the checkbox so that it's a bit more user-friendly. So now let's go ahead and set up the active video checkbox and connect that with our segments so that we only see the segments of the video we're actually currently working on. Again, I showed you that in the demo here. But if we have a lot of videos, let me unarchive these. If we have a lot of videos in the system and we were forced to look at all of the segments for all of our videos at any given time, that would be pretty overwhelming. So the system is set up so that we can just view the active segments, which is determined by the active video checkbox. So if we jump back here, what we're going to do is let's go ahead and add in our active video. And then I'm going to create a few segments here. They're not going to be used, but let's just create a few. And then I'm also going to create 3 and 4 here. So you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4. If we jump over to segments, we're going to see 4 different segments. And again, if we were to re-enable this videos column here, we would see those here. These 2 segments are connected to video ID 3, and then these 2 segments here are connected to video 4, and you can see that here, 4 and 3. So now what we can do is we can rename this view here to active videos. And then we can come up to the filter here, and we can change the filter to active is checked. So now we're only seeing the active, and then we could go ahead and duplicate this. And we could say all segments, and this should be active segments. So if we come here, then we'll take this filter off, and now we're seeing everything. But then we can come back to active segments and only see the segments that we're working on. I'm going to go ahead and hide this again, and then I'm going to come back to videos. Now the only thing we need to do here is that notice if I were to select multiple videos here, then it ends up showing all of the different segments, which could be handy in case you want to copy certain information from one segment to another. If you wanted to make it so that only one video was active at a time, let me show you a little trick. I'm going to jump up to the automations here. Going to add a new automation. We're going to use when record matches condition, table, video, condition, when the active video is checked. So when we check a new video, this automation is going to run. Then I'm going to go ahead and add another step here, find records, table, videos. Then we'll search by condition. We'll add the condition where the active video is checked and the record ID is not. Then we'll come up here to the gear, dynamic. We'll add a field here. We'll use the value from the trigger. We'll select record ID, and then we're going to add a loop for the input. We'll use the find records, use as a list, and now we simply need to uncheck all of the other records that are not the active. So we'll do an update. For the table, we'll update the videos. For the record ID, we will loop through the current item, and we'll select the record ID of that current item. Then for the fields, we'll simply go to active video, and we will uncheck it. Let's rename our automation to active video, and we'll go ahead and turn it on, and then we'll jump back to Airtable. I'll erase all of these. And now if I select one and then select another one, it should automatically uncheck that one just like it did. And then I could come back here, select that one, and then it will uncheck that one. So now we have our active video automation set so that anytime we change that, it will automatically update this view here to show. So if I come here and I move to 3, notice that it now switched to show the segments that we need. All right, so now I think we're in a good spot. Let's go ahead and start building out some N8N automations. And if you're enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It tells me what type of content you want more of. All right, so next what we need to do is we actually need to generate the AI video. So in order to do that, we do need to create a new view for the automation. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this view. And on this view here, I'm gonna rename it to all videos. For this section here, I'm gonna go ahead and rename this to generate video. And then what I will do here is I'm going to adjust the filter so that only the rows that have video go are checked. So here we just need to check this here. And now we see no rows here, but if we come back over here, if I were to click go video and then come back to this view here, it would pop up. So I'll come back over to all videos. Now I'm just going to jump over to my other Airtable base. I'm going to copy the video script, drop it here. I'll go ahead and give a description. Make this the active video. And then again, here we have generate video. So now I'm going to jump over to N8N. I've got a brand new workflow here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new step. I'm going to go to Airtable, and I'm going to go ahead and use search records. And I'm going to use the search records here to facilitate this particular automation. Now, in my other Airtable base, I used a more sophisticated way of triggering the automations with a webhook. If you notice here, we have a webhook, and all of these different automations here are sending the information to N8N when the certain conditions are present. So in here, we have generate video, and we have these conditions here in the demo that I performed earlier. But just to keep things simple, I'm going to use a search, and you'll see how that works. If you do want to get your hands on this base, just check out the No Code Architects community. So here, what we're going to do is we're just going to search for any records that come into this particular view, generate video. And you'll see how this works. It works just fine. And so for the base here, we'll go ahead and select AI video, and we'll use our YouTube demo here, and we'll pick the table videos. We'll leave the filter alone. For return all, we'll go ahead and turn that off, and we'll go ahead and limit it to just one. And so now if I go ahead and test that step, and we're seeing a few of those records come through. If we wanted to get additional fields, we could go click output fields, and we're definitely going to need the video script. I think that's all we're going to need. Run that again. Now we're seeing less information. Let's jump back over just to make sure everything is good. One thing I forgot to do here is add an option to look at the specific view that we need. So I'm going to go ahead here and click generate video. Now we'll go ahead and test again. So now we've got that video script. I'm also going to come back to output fields and just look through here and just pick anything that I think I might need. I'm going to need the width, height, might also need the record ID. So let's go ahead and test this again. All right, so I think that's everything that I need. All right, so we'll come back to N8N, go ahead and move things over a bit. Now the next thing we need to do is simply just to call the HeyGen API to generate the video. Before I do that, I need to jump over to Airtable, and I'm gonna create another automation down here, add trigger. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a webhook. And this webhook will be used so that when the video is complete, we can go ahead and update our Airtable database with the video into our attachment field here. I'll finish that up in just a second. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go ahead and add a HTTP request, and I'm just going to copy what I have over in my other automation. It's a post, so we'll copy that over. So here we'll update this to a post, and then here we're going to go ahead and add a URL for generate. And then for authentication, I'm going to go ahead and add this now. We'll go ahead and use a generic type. For generic type, we'll go ahead and use header auth, and then we'll go ahead and create a new credential. Here we'll go ahead and put X-API key. And then I'm going to jump over to HeyGen, going to jump over into my space, the settings, go to subscriptions and APIs. And I believe you should be able to use their API for free. You'll have a limited number of credits that you'll be able to use, and it will include a watermark, but it should allow you to go ahead and test it. I'm going to go ahead and copy. We'll put that value here. We'll go ahead and click save. I'll rename this to HeyGen YouTube demo so I can remember it later if I need to call other APIs. Go ahead and say that one more time. Back out. It should be selected. Now we're going to have to send a few additional headers. Here we're going to go ahead and type accept, and then here we'll put application/ JSON, and then we're going to send a body. We're going to send a JSON. Instead of using fields below, we'll go ahead and just put JSON. I'm going to jump back to my existing automation. I'm going to copy, and I'm just going to paste that in here. I'll go ahead and expand this so you have a chance to copy everything that is here, word for word and letter by letter. Now, once you have this copied over, I'm going to take out a few of the placeholders just to show you how to do that one particular piece. So now for the avatar ID, you will need to create your own avatar. So if we come back to the main page and we come down to avatars, you can go ahead and click this and record a video and upload it, and it will create an avatar. I'm going to click into mine, and then from here, I'm going to click on these three dots, copy avatar ID, and we'll put that right here. Make sure not to break the quotes or it will break this JSON here. Again, make sure to copy everything exactly as I have it. Now I have a paid subscription. You might need to turn trial to true, but I'm not 100% sure on that. If you run into an issue, try that out. Now for the voice, we're going to go ahead and copy over the placeholder from the Airtable video script, and we're going to place that right here. For the voice ID, we're going to jump back to HeyGen. We're going to come down here to voice ID. When you add a new avatar, you're going to have a voice clone here. I'm going to use the voice clone that I created in HeyGen, but you'll have something that looks similar to this from the video you uploaded. I'm going to use the three dots, copy voice ID, come back to N8N. We'll drop that voice ID right here. Now for the dimensions, just drag these over. Height and width. For the callback ID, we're going to go ahead and use the record ID. That way we know which record we need to update once it is done. And then we're going to add in the callback URL that we added in the Airtable automation. Jump back into the automation. I'll go ahead and rename it now. HeyGen video webhook. And then I'm going to go ahead over here and we'll copy that, jump back to N8N, and we'll drop that into the callback URL here. And now that should be all we need. I'm going to go ahead and test this step. It looks like everything completed successfully here. There's no error. And we have a video ID. So I'm going to come back to HeyGen, come back to home. It does look like we have an error. So it looks like the resolution was not allowed. So if I come back, let's see what I did wrong here. So it looks like my height and width are coming across as the same value, which is not valid. So let's check out what we did here in the database to cause that to happen. So it looks like somehow the height was entered in as 1280 instead of 720. I'm just going to jump over to the all videos here and add a new row. Not sure how that happened, but looks like we got that corrected. We can jump back to N8N. Going to go back to the Airtable search. We'll rerun that to get the new values. Then we can reopen our HeyGen request. Now we've got the proper height there. So when we look at our API request, we should have the proper height. Now we can go ahead and test that step one more time. Jump over to HeyGen, refresh. Now we see that video is now processing. This will take just a few minutes, and when it's done, it's going to send a request to our webhook here. So in just a few seconds, we'll see something come through. We actually already are seeing something, but this is likely the GIF. It's going to, actually this looks like it was the fail. So what we need to do is wait for the next webhook to come back, but it was telling us that the video failed if you want to handle that error. The next webhook we're going to see is it's going to generate a thumbnail GIF for us, and it's going to send that to us. We're going to ignore that one. I'm going to go ahead and get ready for that. We're going to create some conditional logic here, and I'll leave that alone until we actually get the request back here. So I ran test trigger again, and now we're seeing that the GIF has been successful. So ultimately, we don't really need that. If you wanted it, you could save that as well. But really what I want is the video. So what this condition is going to do is we're going to make sure that it's the video and not the GIF before we try to save it back to Airtable. Looks like it's done. So we should see a new trigger coming through here. Let's look at the body. Okay, so this is event type avatar underscore video success. So what we're going to do here is we're going to simply look at the body, and event type is avatar underscore video dot success. Then we should be able to test the conditions. That's successful. So now all we need to do is update the row in question. So we'll come here, update row, table, video, and for the record ID, we'll use the record ID that we passed to HeyGen, which they pass back to us. So we'll go into the event data. Notice here's that callback ID. So now we have the record ID in question. Now we just need to update the fields. Scroll down here. We'll go to AI video, and we will add in the body, the event data, and the URL. So now down here, we can go to run as configured and then run once. Don't worry about that. That's not an actual error. It's just telling you that it can't show you the video in this view. We'll jump back to Airtable. Now we have the video. So you should be able to open it up and play it. That's awesome. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this view here, and I'm going to update the filter to also look for the video, the AI video, being empty. That way it's no longer in this view once we get that video back. So that's good to go. So I can come back here to our automation. I can go ahead and turn that on. And now this portion of the automation is complete. You can rename your workflow, and you'll want to make sure you save as you go along. And now we can move on to the next step. All right, so for the next step, what we need to do is, now that we have the video, we need to get the transcript or the SRT file for the video so that we can then break down the video into different segments. So I'm going to go ahead and come up to generate video. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this view, and I'm going to rename this to generate SRT file or SRT. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the filter here to when the AI video is not empty. And then we'll add another condition, and the video SRT is empty. And then I'll go ahead and remove this filter here. We don't really need it. And in fact, I'm going to jump back to our automation real fast, the HeyGen one here, and I'm just going to add one more field that we're going to update when the video comes back to uncheck that checkbox. So we just leave it unchecked like that. Update, and then we can proceed. So now we have a new row that is inside this view that is helping us trigger the next step, which is to create the SRT file. So now I'm going to jump back to N8N, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy this Airtable search. We'll duplicate it, we'll push it down here. Then I'm going to go ahead and just connect our trigger up to this search instead of the HeyGen search here. Open up this Airtable. And now in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to change the view that we are pulling from to generate SRT. In this case, what we're going to need is that video URL. I'm going to go ahead and test the step here. So now we're pulling through these values as before, but it doesn't really matter. But what I also want to pull through now is the AI video as well. Go ahead and test the step. So now we've got the AI video, and now we also have a URL to the video, so we can now transcribe it and get the SRT file to then create the segments. So in this case, again, we're going to need an HTTP request. Now, in order to get the SRT file, I'm going to use an open source project here called the No-Code Architects Toolkit. It's a free project that allows you to do a lot of different things with audio and video. And while there are other services we could use to get the transcript and the SRT, we are going to need to do many other operations with video and audio, like combining the video with the B-roll that we generate and adding captions. And this free project is going to allow us to do that all in one tool. So before I finish this out, I'm going to go ahead and install that very quickly, and I'm going to show you step by step how to do that. All right, so now to install the NCA Toolkit, I am in the DigitalOcean platform. If you don't already have an account, you'll want to sign up. Once you've created an account, you'll want to create a new project. I already have one here called APIs. I actually already have an NCA Toolkit already pre-installed, but I'm going to go ahead and install a new one. So I'm going to come up here to create, and we're going to go ahead and use the app platform, and we're going to create an app. For deployment source, we're going to go ahead and use container image, and we are going to use Docker Hub. For the repository, I'm going to jump over into my community and copy and paste this into that box. I'll link that in the description below, but you could also take a second and copy it from here, Stephen G. Pope / No-Code Architects Toolkit with dashes, not underscores. And then for the image tag or digest, you'll just type latest. And then you can leave the credentials alone. Then you'll go ahead and click next. Now, because the name is a bit long, it's going to automatically show an error here. So we have to correct that here. We're going to go to edit, and we're simply going to remove that extra dash here. So now we're good to go. We're going to create a web service. Then we can go ahead and click close. And then for the size here, I'm going to go ahead and increase this to this $50 a month instance. Now, you don't have to create an instance that is this size, but for installation and just getting things going, I find it's easier just to pick something that's a little bit larger so you don't run into issues, but you can always experiment with picking a smaller instance. The size that you pick is going to determine how big of a file you can process and how long it takes. And so just for testing, it's nice to start off with something that we know that works and it's going to process everything fairly quickly. And again, this is the monthly price. So you can install this today and delete it literally 2 hours from now and not pay this entire amount. But it's just a lot easier to get up and running. I'm going to go ahead and move the containers to 1, and then we'll go ahead and close it. For deployment settings, you can leave those alone. For the network, you can leave that alone. Now we do need to add in a few different variables. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit. Make sure that when you add these, you do it just as I do, and make sure you don't have any spaces before or after the values that you put here. And make sure you're using underscores and not dashes. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see people make as they're trying to set this up. I'm going to go ahead and type API underscore key. And for testing, I'm going to go ahead and use test 1, 2, 3. This is something that you'll want to change later. We'll go ahead and add another environment variable. Next, we're going to use S3 underscore endpoint URL. Now, in order to get the value for this, we do need to come over to the spaces object storage and create a new space. I'm going to open up a new window just so I don't have to leave where I'm at now and lose all the work I've put in. I'm going to come over to Spaces Object Storage. I'm going to create a new bucket. You can go ahead and leave New York as the default. And then for the bucket name, I'm going to put NCA install demo, and we'll leave it in the project that we created earlier. I'll go ahead and create the Spaces bucket. Now from here, I'm going to head over to settings, and I'm going to create an access key. We're going to create full access. You can go ahead and give it a name if you'd like. I'm going to call it the NCA install demo-key. I'm going to create the access key. It's going to create it right here. Now it's only going to show this to you one time, so make sure you don't move away from this before you grab it. First things first, I'm going to grab the URL right here because that was the first variable that we were setting up. Going to come back to our setup here. For the S3 endpoint URL, I'm going to drop that here. Again, just make sure there's no spaces before or after. It'll save you a lot of time and trouble. Add new variable. We'll add the next key. This will be the S3 access key. And then for the value, we'll jump back to our new space and we'll grab the access key here, paste that into the value here in our server. Then we're going to add another variable. In this case, we are going to add S3 secret key. And we'll come back to our space. This time we're going to grab this key here and we'll drop that value right here. Again, just make sure there's no spaces before or after. We'll save you a lot of time on both the key and the value. Then we'll go ahead and add another variable. This time for the key, we're going to use S3 bucket name. We'll come back to our bucket. We can copy this into the value. Again, make sure there's no spaces before or after on both sides. Then we got one more variable to add. This is going to be the S3 region. And then for this, the value will be NYC3. Again, just make sure there's no spaces before and after. Once you're done, you can come back. Once you have the region, the bucket name, the key, the access key, the endpoint, and the API key, you can go ahead and click close. You can leave this part alone. For the region, go ahead and pick San Francisco. And then you can go ahead and pick a unique name if you'd like. Otherwise, you can use their default. And from there, you can go ahead and create your new app. Now, this is going to take a few minutes to deploy the first time. Go ahead and wait. Every once in a while, I have found that I had to refresh the screen to actually see that it was done. Go ahead and wait till it's done, and then we can move on to the next step. All right, so once you see this, you know your app is live. A couple of things to point out before I show you how to test to make sure it's working. You can always look at the overview here. It gives you a bit of information about your server. You can also check out the insights. This is going to show you the CPU and the memory utilization so that you can detect whether or not your server is overloaded or if something is wrong. You can also check out the runtime logs. You should see something like this at this time. When the API calls are coming through, you will be able to see them here and you'll be able to monitor how they are operating. And then you also have the console here, which allows you to actually log into your server and type commands, but you probably won't need to use this. And then of course you have the settings for this server. So now in order to test this, what I recommend doing is going to a service called Postman. I'm going to open up a new tab here. I'm going to go to postman.com. You're going to want to sign up for a free account. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. I'm going to use a Google account. And now this is pretty much an empty workspace. Now in the description below, I gave you a link to a Postman URL that will give you access to something that looks much like this. And what this is it's a template to not only help you test to make sure that the toolkit is installed, but it's also a set of pre-made APIs that you can test and explore. So the toolkit does a lot more than just transcribe videos and create SRT files or create captions. It allows you to do a lot with advanced media manipulation, concatenating videos, clipping, cropping, creating thumbnails, adding logos to videos. You can draw text on videos or images. You can transform video into audio. So make sure you explore all the different features that the toolkit will allow you to do. For now, we're going to focus in on making sure that the authentication is correct and that this test endpoint is working correctly. Again, there's a link in the description below. Once you're logged into Postman, you can come up to your browser and drop in that link. You're going to see that version 1 and all the different tests along the left-hand side here. If you come up to the 3 dots here, you will be able to create your own fork. Go ahead and click on that. It's going to ask you to name your fork. Go ahead and do that and then fork the collection. It's going to load up that new collection here. You can go ahead and expand this and then go ahead and expand the toolkit. These are the 2 endpoints that we need to test just to make sure everything is working as expected. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to environments. Let me expand this a little bit here so we can see everything a little bit better. We're going to come up to environment. We're going to create environment. You can rename it if you'd like right here. You can just type DigitalOcean. Now we're going to add a couple of variables here. One of them is going to be x-API-key. And then for the initial value, you're going to want to put in the test123, which is what we set in our environment variable when we set up the toolkit. So here you're going to type test123. That's going to copy over to the current value. And remember, it's x-API-key, not underscores. And I'm pointing that out because the next one we're going to add it, which is base underscore URL, is a little bit different. So here we're going to type base underscore URL. We're going to jump back to our DigitalOcean server. We're going to grab this URL right here, copy link address, come back to Postman. We're going to drop that into the initial value. That's going to copy over to the current value. And then we're going to make sure to save this, because if you don't save it, then it won't register. So make sure you save it. Once you save it, you should be able to come down to the authenticate, and this should now be gray. If for some reason it's still red, then you can always just cut and paste this URL directly into that test here. So you could erase this and just put the URL directly. It's a lot nicer to use the environments because under all of these different examples here, it will use this environment and it will insert that dynamically. Same goes for the headers. If I come to the header here and we have the X API key here, that value is coming through here so that you don't have to cut and paste that into every single one of all of these different examples, which would be a pain. But you can come into the headers here and just type in the value test123, or you could copy that URL directly into this box here. So I'm going to go ahead and test this. We'll click send. As long as you see a success, then you are good to go. If not, then that likely means that either this base URL is wrong or the API key that you set up when you deployed this server is different than what you have set up in this environment variable here. But I'm using the same things that I've told you to use test123, so it should be the same thing as long as you're doing exactly what I'm doing. So once you do the authenticate, again, you click send. As long as you see success, you're good to go. Now all you need to do is to come down to test. Again, you're going to see this as a gray variable as well as in the headers. Now we can go ahead and click send, and you should see a success. It's going to give you a test file here. If you go ahead and copy and paste this into your browser, it should download it. If you open that up, here we should see you have successfully installed the NCA Toolkit API. Great job. As long as you're seeing that, you're good to go and you can move on with the video. All right, so I'm back here at this HTTP request. If you remember here, before we were installing the NCA Toolkit, we were grabbing the Airtable record from this view here to generate the SRT. We can go ahead and continue forward with that now. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this HTTP request. And for this method here, I'm going to update this to a post. And then for the URL, I'm going to jump over to DigitalOcean and I'm going to copy this URL here, jump back to N8N, drop that here. And then I'm going to jump back to Postman and I'm going to jump into the media section here, transcribe. And then I'm going to copy this section here, copy jump back to N8N, go ahead and paste. Notice there's a double slash there, so I'm going to remove that to make sure that there is only one. So now we have the full URL endpoint to transcribe the content. Now for the authentication, we're going to go ahead and use generic credential type. And then for generic auth type, you want to select header auth. And then for the header auth, we're going to go ahead and create a new credential. For the name, we're going to put x-API key. And for the value, we're going to go ahead and use test123. Remember, that was the value that we added when we first set up our cloud server. And I'm going to go ahead and click save. So now we have that. We can go ahead and leave these blank. I'm going to go ahead and toggle on the send body. And we can go ahead and leave body content type as JSON and specific body as using JSON. Now I'm actually going to jump back to Postman again. And I'm going to jump back to the body here because we have an example that we can pull from in this transcribe here. Go ahead and copy this. I'm going to paste it here into the JSON. And then we need to make a few modifications. So this URL here, we don't need to use that test URL. We're going to use the URL from the AI video. Go ahead and drop that here. I'm going to go ahead and open this and make it a little bit easier to modify. Looks like it didn't go to the right spot. Try that again. Task is transcribe. We'll go ahead and include the text. We'll include the SRT. These should both be true. For include segments, I'm going to go ahead and remove this. We don't need that. For response type, we're going to leave that as cloud. For word timestamps, we can go ahead and remove that. For language, we can go ahead and remove that. Now for ID, I'm going to remove 2323 and put in the record ID of this particular record. This is how we're going to reference it when it's done. Here, I need to make sure I have a comma and I need another comma. Going to hit enter, and then we're going to add in a webhook URL. And then we're going to jump back to our Airtable database. And here we are going to create an additional automation. This is going to be the generate SRT webhook. And then for the trigger, we are going to add a webhook received. It's going to give us this here. We're going to copy that, jump back to N8N, and we're going to drop that right here. And so now we have everything we need in order to properly get the transcription and the SRT file back from the NCA Toolkit that we just installed. So now I'm going to come back here and let's go ahead and give that a test. Everything looks good. We're getting a code 202 processing. That's right. If I jump over to DigitalOcean, I'm going to go to the runtime logs and notice here, it's now processing that request. So now let's jump back over to Airtable. And now you can see here that we have a new request coming back. That's a good sign. Let's go ahead and look at the body here. Code 200, that means it was a success. That's great. And then we can look in the response here, and you can see here we have the text URL and the SRT URL of the transcription and the SRT file. So we're good to go. So now what we can do is we can come to the next step here and we can update the record. In this case, the table is going to be videos and the record ID. We'll go to the body here. We're going to use the ID that we sent. So again, if you see what's happening here, we're requesting a transcript from this specific record ID. It sends it back to this webhook URL and gives us back that record ID so we know which one to update. So we'll go here to the fields. Now in this case, we're going to just type TR. That way we have the video transcript and then we can insert the result into that field. We don't really use the transcript, but it doesn't hurt to have it. We'll go into the response and we have the text URL. So we'll drop that here and we'll add another field, SRT, and we will add in the SRT file as well from the response. Here it is. And then we can go ahead and do run as configured, run test. Again, don't worry about that. And if we come back here, notice it's going to fall out of this view because if we come back to all videos and then we open up this row here, we are going to see, I'm going to expand the hidden fields. We're going to see we have the video SRT file. If I click on that, it's going to download. And if I open it, we're going to see that we have that SRT file that we can then use to break up the video into segments and also have those timestamps that we need. So here we're good to go. We can go ahead and turn this automation on, and then we can move on to the next step. And then looking at our agenda here, we've gone through the demo, we've set up Airtable, and we've started to build through our automations, and we can move on to the next step. And if you're still following along, I wanted to say good job. We're through a lot of the hard parts, And now we're on to the final stretch. So now what we're gonna need is another view here to segment everything for the next step. I'll go ahead and just duplicate this view and then we'll modify it. Here we're gonna say generate segments. We'll adjust the filter here. So in this case, we want the video and the SRT should be not empty. And now we have that video pop back into this view. And then I'm gonna go over here and just delete all these segments here. Go to all segments, delete. Come back to videos, filters. I'll add one more condition where segments is empty so that once it creates segments, it will fall out of this list. Now we can jump back to N8N. Make sure you're saving this as we go. I'll go ahead and duplicate this Airtable node here. I'll reconnect our trigger to our new node. And let's go ahead and modify our Airtable search so that it uses the generate segments view. We can go ahead and test it. So now we have all of the original data that we had in the previous, but now we're also going to need that SRT file. So I'm going to come back to the output fields. I'll grab that video SRT. Let's go ahead and run the test again. There we've got that video SRT. So now we're good. So now in this next step here, what we need to do is to download the SRT file. So if you remember, we have the SRT file. It's right here, but what we need to do is actually download that so we can process it. So I'm going to add an HTTP request. We can go ahead and use the get method for the URL. We're going to pass it the video SRT. We can leave the authentication as none. And let's go ahead and test that, see what we get back. So there we go. We have the data. Here is the SRT. Go ahead and rearrange. Then next up, we'll go ahead and add a node for code. You can go ahead and leave this as run once for all items, language JavaScript, and then we can go ahead and replace the default code here. You'll find this in the resources in the description below. From here, we can go ahead and test this step. Notice it's going to break up that SRT file into all of these individual objects within an array. If you have that, you're good to go. And now what we need to do is to go into Airtable. Let's go ahead and create a new record. Of course, you'll need your connection. Pick your base. You'll want to pick the segments table. This is what we're inserting into. You can go ahead and leave this as map each column manually. Now for the SRT text, we can go ahead and copy this here. For the start time, you're going to want to copy this from the resources or pause the video and copy and paste that. For the end time, you're going to want to do the same. Select expression. Go ahead and paste in the value from the resources in the description or pause the video and copy it. Now we really don't need these other fields right now, so I'm going to go ahead and remove these until we get to SRT segment, and we also have the timestamp. For the segment SRT, you can copy this from the resources as well. And for the timestamps, make sure you click expression and drop those here. And then finally, as we create these segments in this table here, we do need to link it back to the video. You'll remember that in our setup of Airtable. So I'm going to add one more column back if I deleted it, and we'll go to videos. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the expression. I'm going to add 2 brackets and a open and close quote. And then I'm going to drag in the ID here from the original trigger. And that should be everything that we need. So we can go ahead and test this step. Looks like it created 8 items. So if we jump back to Airtable, we've got those 8 segments. So now we're good to go. We can go ahead and save our automation and we can keep moving along. All right, now we got the segments done. Let's keep moving on. We're gonna shift our focus a bit to the segments now. What we need to do is create our AI image prompt. We have to create the AI image, and then we have to turn that image into a video that we can then overlay on top of our AI generated video. So I'm going to come back to our segments, and now I'm going to create a new view. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the all segments. In here, we're going to say generate image and video. And then here, what we need to do is update the filter to make sure that the B-roll is checked. So let's come up to the active segments here, and let's take a little look at all of the different segments. So now in this case, the segments are ordered in reverse order. I think it would actually make more sense to have it like this. And let's go ahead and select segment 7. If you're using a different script, only pick one B-roll to get started here. Don't pick multiple B-rolls. It's going to complicate the process. And when I set up the automations, I'm going to work with one first. And then later on, I'll show you how to work with more of them. So now if we come down to generate image and video, we're going to see that we have one row in the segment showing up. So I'm going to jump back to our automation. I'm going to go ahead and make some additional space. I'll go ahead and duplicate this, even though we need to change the table. It looks like it created it up here. I'll drag it down. I'm going to disconnect this trigger here, move it, and reconnect. And then we just need to modify the search. So now we're going to be searching the segments. Again, we're going to keep this the same. We're going to need to redo this because these values are going to be different. And we also need to update the view. Here we're going to pick generate image and video. And now for this, what we're going to look at is we have the SRT text, which shows us the context of this particular segment. But in this example here, I also include the video script, the entire script, so that we have the entire context of the video when we are using this smaller bit, so that it's not just trying to create B-roll from this smaller text here without the context of the rest of the video. So here I'm going to add one more lookup field. We're going to pull through the video script. So now we have the entire script here. We can jump back to N8N. We might need to come over to output fields and just refresh the list so we have everything. Here's the SRT text. We don't need the start and end time quite yet. I believe we only need the SRT text and then also the main video script. So let's go ahead and test that. We should see this value coming through. This is the one we wanted to update, so we can continue on. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to generate the AI image prompt. So here I'm going to go to OpenAI. We're going to message a model. For the model, I'll go ahead and just pick 4.0 for now. So now for the prompt itself, I'm going to start with a system prompt, and I'm going to copy this from the resources in the description below. We'll open this up, but basically we're using the system prompt to describe that it's an AI image prompt writer tasked with creating B-roll images for segments of the story below. And then we actually paste the full story here. So I'm going to remove this placeholder that's broken, and then I'm going to insert the story here. And then I've got some other instructions here about creating a photorealistic image. If you wanted the AI to generate different types of images for the context of your videos and B-roll, you could change that here. But you can see it's now inserting the main script into the story here. And then I'm going to add another message. And now we're going to drop in a prompt. And you can copy it and paste this from the resources below. And so now we simply say create an AI image prompt from the segment below. And here's where we pass the actual segment. So here's where we give all the instructions and the full script. And then here's a simple prompt to create the AI image prompt from the segment below. And then we have to correct this placeholder with the actual segment, which is right here. And then this role is going to be user. We can leave this on and this off as well. And we should be good to go. Let's go ahead and test this. Of course, you'll need to set up your connection. So now we have our AI image prompt. And now in this example, I'm going to go ahead and use OpenAI to generate the image. We'll generate an image. And using OpenAI is going to help us keep the cost down and make this demonstration a bit easier. It's already a long video. Of course, if you want to swap this out for any of your own AI image generation tools, then feel free to do so. Or feel free to jump into the No-Code Architects community where I have the version that uses Midjourney. Now for the prompt here, all we have to do is grab the prompt that we created in the previous step. So here it's going to create the image, but I also want to add in the dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and add these dimensions here, dimensions, colon, and then all of this looks right, but I'm going to add an option here to respond with the image URLs. This is going to make it easier to work with. We'll go ahead and turn that on. And then let's go ahead and test the step. Looks like we got our URL here. We can take a quick look at that. There we go. Now it does look like it ignored our size. So I'm going to come back here and look at the options. Looks like we have the resolution here. We can update this. We can remove it from here. Let's go ahead and update the quality as well. Standard HD, style. We'll go ahead and leave it as vivid. Let's go ahead and run it again. We got our new URL. Let's grab that, copy and paste that into the browser so we can see what it looks like. All right, so now we have the right dimensions that we can use for our horizontal video. So now let's go ahead and move to the next step. So what I'm going to do now is, in order to animate this image into a video, In this version that I showed you before, I used Kling, but just to keep things simple and a little bit lower cost, I'm going to use the NCA Toolkit, which is going to do like a Ken Burns style zoom in on that video to give it some animation. So I'm just going to go ahead here and add an HTTP request. We're going to change this to a post. I'm going to jump over to Postman, and I'm going to come over here to Image, Transform, Video. And I'm going to grab this endpoint here. Actually, before I grab that, I'm going to grab the URL from DigitalOcean, copy link. We'll drop that in the URL here. It's already got the slash. I'm going to remember that from last time. So this time I'm not going to include the slash so that I don't have to remove it later. We'll add that to the end. For authentication, I'm going to use the authentication that we already set up, header auth, and then we can select the header auth account 5. I should have renamed that to something a little bit more friendly. I'll do that now. AI, B-roll, YouTube demo. That'll at least make it easier if we use it again. You can leave these off. We're going to go ahead and send a body. Go ahead and leave this as is. We'll change this to use JSON. I'm going to jump back over to Postman. I'm going to come to the body here, and I'm simply going to copy this. Come back to N8N. We'll copy that in here. Now to make this easier to work with, I'm going to go ahead and click expression. Then I'm going to expand this so it's just bigger. We'll remove the test image here. For the length of the video, I'm going to go ahead and just make it 3 seconds long to make it easier. Frame rate, I'll leave it at 25. You can adjust that as needed, and we'll leave the zoom speed at 3. You'll want to adjust the frame rate to whatever the frame rate of the original video is. This HeyGen video here, I haven't looked into that, but to make the transition as best as possible, you'll want to keep them the same. Now for the ID here, again, we're going to pass in the ID of the segment, which is right here. And then we're going to put a comma, and then we're going to add in the webhook URL and put double quotes just like that. And then we're going to jump back to Airtable, and we are going to add another automation here. We're going to call it generate image plus video, and we're going to add a new webhook. And then we're going to grab this webhook here, jump back to N8N. We're going to drop that right there. And that should be all that we need. So now if we test this step, code 202, that's processing, that's good. We jump back over to Airtable. We already have that back. So it looks like we got an error. I'm just going to confirm this URL again is working. And here I realized that I never dragged in the image URL. So we're going to drag that in as well. Sometimes when you do it that way, it doesn't work. So I'm going to open that up. Let's take this URL, drag it in here. Now let's go ahead and test that step again. Jump back to Airtable. Let's test the trigger. This looks like the previous error here, so you have to wait a second for it to process. You can always cross-match these job IDs. So this is saying 3F. This job ID is 1A, so we know it's not the same one. Test it again. So now we've got that new job ID, and now it's giving us that response. So now we're good to go. So now we can come in here, we can add an updated record table. This is going to be segments for the record ID. We are going to use the ID coming back from the No Code Architects Toolkit. And then for the fields here, we're going to scroll down to where we are storing the video. And I'm going to go ahead and insert the URL that is coming back from the response. Then we should be able to run as configured, run test. Again, don't worry about that. Let's jump back to our segments. We now have the AI video here. We've got to jump over to segments. We'll jump over to active segments. We see our video here, and we should be able to play it. Remember, we made it 3 seconds long. And then we have that slight zoom in effect. So now when we add our B-roll, it'll have some motion. It'll be an actual video. So again, just use one B-roll for now, and we're good to go on to the next section where we overlay B-roll. All right, so let's keep things moving along here. I'm going to jump back to Airtable. I forgot to turn on this automation here. Now the next section is to overlay our B-roll segment on top of the original video. So again, we have our original video here, and we have all of these segments that we've connected to it based off of the SRT. We selected one of the segments to use as B-roll. We generated the prompt and the AI image. In the automation that we built out, we didn't actually save those individually back to the table. I usually do that. So if you want to go back and add those in, that's totally cool. And then we also generated the video. So now what we need to do is head back over to the videos tab. And now we're going to go ahead and duplicate this view here. This time we're going to change the filter here so that the segments are not empty. And also that the video plus B-roll go is on. So I'm going to go here, B-roll. And we want to make sure that this is checked. And what that's going to do is when we check this, it's going to say, okay, we've selected the B-roll, generated all the assets that we need for all of the B-roll, and we're going to go ahead and run it. So I'll go ahead and click that. And again, just remember, just for now, only test one B-roll, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the video in the advanced techniques. So now we come down here, generate image video, and we're good to go. So let's work through this next section. We're actually in the final stretch now. Back to our automation. I'm going to come back up here and duplicate this Airtable because this one was still using the previous table, the videos table, whereas the one below it, this one here, was using the segments. I'm going to disconnect this, reconnect with our Airtable. Search, and now what we're going to do here is we're going to search the videos, we're going to return one. We can keep this the same, except we're going to want to add in the segments so that we bring back all of those segments so that we can load those and then overlay it on the video itself. And we need to change the view here from generate segments to, actually let's go back to our Airtable base. Here we want to generate video plus B-roll. I'll go ahead and refresh the list. And we have one record there. So let's take a look at what our test brings back. So we have all of that previous information and we have all of the different segments. Realistically, in this example, we really only want the segments that are checked in the segments table here. Remember, in active segments, we have these here. So I'll show you something pretty cool with Airtable. We can come here. I'm going to create a lookup field and I'm going to go ahead and look up the record ID. So now what we have here is we have all of the record IDs similar to what we have here. So it's just showing us all of those. But then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in and edit the field and then I'm going to only include linked records from the segments table that meet certain conditions. And I'm going to scroll down to B-roll is checked and then we'll save it. And now you can see we've only got one record here, which is what we want. If we were to add others like this, and we go back to videos, it's going to show two, but we haven't run through those. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that back off. Again, remember, just run one for this experiment. Come back to N8N. We can go ahead and leave the segments there. That's not a problem, but I'm going to refresh the list again. And now we're going to grab the record ID from segments. And now we'll test the step again. So now we have just the segment record ID that is enabled for the B-roll. So now in this next section here, I'm going to go to Airtable, get a record. Again, you want to select the base and the table, this time videos. And for the record ID, we'll go ahead and pass in this specific record ID. Then we'll be able to test this step. And now we've got that entire record ID, which is the segment. So now we've got start times, end times, we've got the URL of the video. So we've got everything we need now to actually combine the original video and overlay on the B-roll. So next up, we're going to add another HTTP request. And for the method here, we'll use post. I'm going to jump over to Postman. And then in this case, we're going to use this FFmpeg compose endpoint here, which is a very powerful endpoint that allows you to do almost anything with audio and video. Definitely recommend that you play around with that tool and do a little bit of research on it. I'm going to copy that endpoint, come back to N8N. I'm going to just paste it into the URL. I forgot to grab that from DigitalOcean. Grab that. We'll put that here. Make sure you only have one slash there. Post. Now we need to do the authentication. And we'll pick, we renamed it to find it easier. Now we have the AI B-roll YouTube demo. There we go. Now we need to just send the body. You can go ahead and leave that. Change this to use JSON. Now this is going to be in the resources linked below in the description. I'm going to grab it from Postman. I was playing with it just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to grab this big JSON here, and I'll explain it and we'll configure it and modify it. But first and foremost, let's just get it in here. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on expression, and then I'm going to expand this. Now this would take quite a bit of time to explain this entire JSON. Again, this is a very powerful endpoint that allows you to do all sorts of different things. If you'd like me to do another video just on FFmpeg Compose, go ahead and leave a comment below and let me know, and I'll do a more in-depth video just on FFmpeg. But what we need to do is we need to get the file URL for the main video and then the B-roll video, and then we need to adjust some of these filters to scale the videos to the right size and make sure that the duration is the right size and the start and end time is the right size and the start and end time is right. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and update this first file URL, which should be the original video. I'm going to scroll to the very beginning. Here's our first Airtable call, and here is our AI video URL. So I'm going to remove this. I'll drag that right here. And now this is going to be the B-roll video URL. So I'll go ahead and remove this. And we'll scroll up to the next Airtable search or Airtable get record. And then we'll grab this URL here. Drop it right there. Now for the filter, we need to use the height and width that was in the original video. So we have that here. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this. Make sure not to disturb any part of the JSON other than the parts that we're replacing. So here is the width. Here is the height. Now, if you remember back when we set up the image to video, I put a default length of 3 seconds, which might have been a mistake now that I think about it, but it's easy to correct. We should probably use the duration that we have here. In this case, it was 4 seconds long. So I'm going to go ahead and just use that duration. That's going to be over here in the segment. We have our duration here. Insert that there. And then here is the start timestamp. I'm going to erase this here, and I'll drag that in from the segment. And again, all of this is simply coming from the values that we extracted from the SRT file. That's why we went through the effort of doing that. Then we also have to put that start time right here as well. And then we also have the end time. We'll drag that in as well. Again, make sure not to break the JSON as a whole. And that should be everything that we need. We can leave everything here below as is. Now, the last thing we need to do is we need to update this webhook URL. So I'm going to have to jump back to Airtable. We're going to go to the automations. We're going to add another automation. We're going to call this generate video plus B-roll webhook. I didn't put that here. I'm going to add that while I'm here. Come back here. We're going to add a trigger, add a webhook, and we will copy it, jump back to our automation. We're going to drop that right here. Now we can come back to the test, and let's go ahead and just run this test now. It's going to send it to the NCA Toolkit. What you're looking for is a code 202. If you get a 400 or anything else, it's very likely that there's just a mistake when you copy and pasted the JSON into the payload here, and you just need to go through and carefully fix that. Once that processes, we should see it come through. And there it is, code 200, bingo, that's what we're looking for. And we have our response here, and there is the URL. So now what we can do is we can add in the next step, update record. Actually, one thing I just realized, we need to go back to N8N, open up our JSON here, and for this record ID, we need to dynamically insert the ID that came from Airtable, because it's going to be the wrong one. Let's go ahead and test that again. We'll know it's the right job when we see 4A come back through again, because this one is 5.4, so we'll wait. Again, don't forget you can always check out your DigitalOcean and you can monitor things here from the runtime logs. Sometimes you do need to refresh to see something new. We can see here that the job ID is finished, and we'll test the trigger one more time. Check out the body. Now we've got the right job ID. Now we've got the right ID here, so when we update the record, we're good to go. select the table. We're in the videos table, record ID. We will go with the body, drop in the record ID, and now we need to update the video plus B-roll attachment field. And we're going to drop in the response in the body. We're going to go to the response here, grab that file URL, go ahead as run as configured, run that test. Then we can jump back to Airtable, jump over to the videos, and now we see we have the video plus B-roll. And now we can go ahead and play that. I think it happens at the, there it is, there it's doing the zoom. And now notice real quick here, notice how it froze there just for a second. That is because back when we created this automation before, right here, we put in a length of 3. So here you might actually put in 10 just in case, or maybe something like 5. It's probably not going to be longer than 5, maybe 6 just to be safe. That way the video won't stop like it did. We can go ahead and save the automation, come back to here. This is good. We can go ahead and turn this automation on. And now the next piece is to caption the video. All right, so now let's jump in and add the captions. You're probably starting to get the idea here. What we need to do is duplicate this view. And here we'll just rename this to add captions. And then we're going to change the filter. I'm noticing this filter here didn't seem to get in the way of anything, but I'm just going to delete it. And then we'll want it to leave this old view, just doing a little bit of cleanup here when the video plus B-roll is empty. All right, and then we'll come over here, and now here we'll take that away. This doesn't really matter here, so let's pull that out. And here we're looking for where the video and B-roll is not empty, so now it should pop back. So now what we need to do is add the captions to this video here that we were looking at that had the B-roll. So let's jump back to our automation here. Let's make a little space. We'll go ahead and duplicate this automation here. Sometimes they pop up at the top there. We'll delink this one here, link it back up. Now we just need to modify this. So in this case here, we're looking for add captions. So again, most of this stays the same, except that we want to pull when there's a new row and add captions. And we also want to change the output fields. We're going to want to grab the video plus B-roll attachment. Let's go ahead and test that. Now we have the URL for the video plus B-roll. And now, again, we're going to use the NCA Toolkit. We'll add an HTTP call. Hopefully now you're seeing the power of the NCA Toolkit and all the different things you can do with it. We'll change that to a post. We'll grab the URL from DigitalOcean. We'll drop that here. I'm going to jump over to Postman. This time we're going to go to video, and you can copy this from the resources below. I'm going to grab the URL. I'm going to leave the slash off, and we'll put that here. Authentication, again, we're going to go with general. Authentication type, header, auth, and we have this one at the top that we created earlier, and we're going to send a body, leave that alone. We're going to change this to using JSON. Now I'm going to jump back to Postman, the body here, and you'll see there's all sorts of different options here. You can actually even replace words. I'm not going to do that for now, but I'll copy this entire payload. You can copy it from the resources below, and we will insert that in here. I'm going to turn it into an expression. Let's open it up. Now for the video URL, we're going to take this out, and we're going to want to drag in, not the AI video, because this doesn't have the B-roll. We want to grab this one here. I'm going to take out the replace, but what this does is if there's common mistakes, like URLs of your business, you can find and replace those before it turns it into a caption. Take that out. Now the settings here, you can change a lot of different things related to settings and the colors and the font size and the font itself and the different styles there are. There's all sorts of different styles. I'm going to use the bold font. Again, here, we're going to want to capture the record ID in the ID here. So come back to the top here, drag in the ID, add a comma, webhook URL, and then we'll leave that just like that. And then I'm going to come up to our automations here. We're going to create another one here. When webhook received, we're going to copy this into our automation here. So this should be everything that we need. I'm going to come back here. We'll go ahead and test this step. Looking for that 202. There you go. Sent in the ID. Just come back here in this automation, wait for that to come back. Usually it'll come back. The captions take a little bit longer than some of the other calls. Again, if you're ever nervous that something's not working, you can jump back to DigitalOcean and you can refresh and look at the runtime logs. And we can see here that it looks like it just finished. Test the trigger. There we go. And we got a success, 200, perfect. So I'm gonna come here. Now we'll just update the record, select the table, videos for the record ID, body, ID, choose the fields. This time we're updating the video plus captions. We'll go into the body and go into the response. And then we can run as configured, run test, jump back over here. Now we've got the captions. Perfect. Captions and the B-roll. Nice. All right. So then you want to update the name, add captions, webhook, turn it on, and now we are good to go with that. All right, so now that we have the captions done, let's go ahead and talk about some additional advanced techniques and that N8N trick I was talking about. But if you want to get access to the more advanced Airtable template and the advanced N8N automations that include the music generation, the better image generation with Midjourney, and the integration with Kling to animate the images into high quality videos, make sure to jump into the No Code Architects community. It's an engaged group. We do in-person meetups. We got an upcoming mastermind. You can get access to those templates in the automation vault. There's also a business clarity course, and there's calls with me almost every single day. Check it out. I'd love to see you there. All right, so next for advanced techniques, let me show you how to add AI music to your videos. Over here, what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to add another column. This is gonna be an attachment field, and we'll go ahead and type AI music. And I'm going to use a platform called the Go API. So you'll need to create an account and get your API key and get everything set up there. And so like we've been doing before, we're going to need to duplicate the view. And I'm going to name this Generate Music. And then we'll go ahead and update the view as we've been doing. So in this case, what we really need to make sure of is that we have the video for captions. We don't really necessarily need to check all of these anymore. I'll go ahead and update this so that video plus caption is not empty. And realistically over here in this view, what we really should do is come to the filter here and update the condition video plus captions is empty. That way, once we actually generate the video captions, it goes away. So now we can go ahead and trigger the generate music. So I'm going to jump back to our automation. And by now you probably know the drill. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this search, pull it down from the bottom, reconnect this trigger here. And now in this search, I'm just going to reconfigure it so that we are looking at the right view. So in this case, we want to generate music. So I'll grab that. And now we'll need to send in the video that we captioned. So video plus captions. Now I should be able to test this step. And now we have the video plus captions that we can send to the Go API to generate the music. Now over in Go API, where you're going to create your account and set up your API key, the model I'm going to be using to generate the music is Diff Rhythm. There are other ones that you can use and experiment with, but that's what I'm going to use for today. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to open up an HTTP request. For authentication, I'm going to go ahead and use what we've been using, the generic credential type, generic auth type, header auth, and I'll go ahead and select my credentials here. Again, I've already created this before, and it uses the standard X API key, and you'll be able to get your key from Go API directly. Once you have that, then all you need to do is enable send body. And again, we're going to change the specific body to use JSON, and I'm just going to come back to my automation here. And first I need to grab these values here. So we'll jump to method and make it post. We'll drop in this URL here. Go ahead and copy this just as I have it. Again, you'll find this JSON in the resources in the description below. I'm going to go ahead and copy it from here. Then we'll copy that directly into the box. I'll go ahead and move it to expression, and then we'll expand it. We're going to replace this webhook the same way we've been doing before. And you can go ahead and leave everything else as is. The only thing that you're going to need is that webhook URL. So again, we're going to jump back to Airtable. We're going to create a new automation. We're going to add a new trigger, which is a webhook. We're going to grab that webhook, jump back into our code. We'll drop it right here. That should be all we need to do. And now I should be able to test this against the Go API. There we go, code 200. So if I come back to Airtable, we should see this request coming back to us in just a few seconds. While we're waiting, I'll go ahead and rename our automation, generate music, webhook. Then I'll just sit tight and wait for that process to finish. All right, I just tested the trigger again. Looks like we got our response. So now we can go look deeper into the body and status is completed. And then we have the output here. Looks like this is where our audio is. So now we can come back to our automation. We're going to update a record. You're probably starting to see the pattern here. We're going to go to videos. But I just remembered here that we didn't pass the record ID to our API. So we have to come back and come to our JSON. We'll expand it. And then we're going to take the record ID just the same way we've been doing that before. And we're going to go ahead and drop that right into the secret. So now we're passing that record ID to the API so it'll come back to us. I'll have to run that again. So let's test the step. Now we're looking for task ID 31. So I'm going to have to come back up to the webhook URL and be patient for that next audio to come back. It's going to take just a few minutes. There we go. So now we can come back to the update record. And for the record ID, we'll be able to grab that from the body data. For this API, it's going to be in config, webhook config, and there's our secret. And now all we need to do is jump back to the AI music field here. And then we'll go ahead and drop the output into this field. There's the audio URL, run as configured, run test. And now if we jump back to Airtable, we have that music here and we would be able to play it. All right, so now that we have the music, all we need to do is to combine the captions and the music. So you're probably starting to see the pattern now. We're gonna go ahead and duplicate this view. Then we'll come up to the filter here. We're gonna add a filter so that we have the music is not empty. And actually we could come back here and add a filter to drop the row back out when the music comes in. So this is where music is empty. So this will fall out now. So we'll go ahead and rename this, combine video plus music. Now let's jump over to N8N. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this search here like we've been doing, pull it down from the top, disconnect the trigger, reconnect it here. Then we just need to modify the search here. So again, we'll come here, we'll add the music, AI music, and then we need to change the view, combine video and music. We can go ahead and test the trigger. So now we have that. We should be able to scroll down and see the video plus captions. So now all we need to do is to add an HTTP request to the NCA Toolkit. HTTP, I know it's going to be a post, so I'm going to go ahead and move it to a post. I'm going to jump over to DigitalOcean, grab my URL. Then I'm going to come back to a previous module where we used FFmpeg compose. Going to grab that endpoint, add it to the end here, make sure there's not 2 slashes there. For authentication, we'll go with the generic credential type, header auth, and then I'm going to go ahead and select the credentials for DigitalOcean. Now I just need to send the body. Again, keep the body content type as JSON. We're going to change this to using JSON. Now I'm just going to jump over to one of my previous automations. Going to grab the JSON from combine video and audio. This will be in the resources linked below. I'll go ahead and copy everything out of here. We'll drop it into the JSON, expand, and then we just need to replace these values. Just going to remove everything and then replace it. That should be everything. So now we need the webhook URL. So we're going to jump back to Airtable. We'll create the new webhook, add trigger. Then we'll copy this back into N8N. We'll take the ID, drop it here. So for these 2 files here, this first one is going to be the captioned HeyGen plus B-roll file. And then this will be the music file. So we'll go ahead and drag in the video plus captions URL here. Then we'll scroll down, grab the AI music, and we'll drop that right here. And then what you're going to notice here is that with the FFmpeg compose payload here, we can actually control the volume between the first file and the second file. So here on this first file here, we're at full volume, and then we're mixing in the music at half volume. So with that, we should be able to make the call to the toolkit, and then we should see that come through here. Let's go ahead and test the step. 202, that's a good sign. Jump back to Airtable. That result came back pretty quick, which is normal for that type of operation. Let's take a look at the body. Success, perfect response. We got the file URL. So now all we need to do is update our row. Actually, I don't think I added the column yet. So here in all videos, I will unhide the music from this view so we see it. There's that. We had that column shown before, but it was only in the views for the trigger. So here we'll just add one more field to the right, attachment, final video, create field. Now we can come back here, update table, videos, record ID. And then for the fields here, we'll just type final video, and then we'll drop in the response, and then run as configured, run test, and there's our final video. Then we can go ahead and hit play to hear the audio and the video. I'm Steven's AI avatar. Notice in this video, we can seamlessly add AI generated B-roll. And there we go. Now let me show you some of those additional advanced techniques. So in my more advanced automations here, you can see that we have a single webhook here that is getting the video data. It's getting this video record here, and then it is patching it into this switch statement, and it's passing it off onto all the different actions that we need for the videos table. And then we have a similar automation that is doing the same for all of the segments, creating the images, upscaling the images, and then creating the AI video from our upscaled image. Now, in order to do this in Airtable, you do need to use the automations here, and you'll see what we do here is that we simply trigger when a record enters a view, which is pretty much what we were doing here with these different searches here. We were simply searching for the records that were entering that view. But instead of having to create an automation where we create some sort of trigger, let's take a look here. We'll add another trigger. Maybe you have a trigger that runs on a schedule. Instead of actually running on a schedule, what these triggers do is that they will instantly run as soon as this action becomes true. So if you've got this generate video and a new row comes into that view, it's going to trigger this automation, and it's going to run this script, which is going to send that webhook the information it needs to continue. In this case, it's going to send the record ID. So we're going to get that record ID coming into the webhook, and then we're going to be able to load that record. And then based off of the action, we can take the appropriate automation. And if we jump back over here too, we can see that we're also sending the action generate video, which would then send it down this path here to generate video, or it's generate SRT, or it's generate segments, or it's generate audio, combine the B-roll, combine the music, and then add the captions. And this format is more instantaneous. It's using the instant triggers, and it's just a lot more clean than trying to build it out this way. Now, when you're testing and prototyping, this is actually a pretty good way of doing it, because when you have to build out all of these automations, it takes a bit more time and thought to do so. Now, additionally, I wanted to show you this here. Remember when we talked about how we only brought in one segment here for the B-roll? That is because in this automation here, where we combined the video with the B-roll, and I'll open up this JSON payload here, we have to dynamically build this JSON. We're always going to have one video here, which is the original video that we're overlaying all the other videos on, but we're also going to have an X number of B-roll videos that we may need to account for. So in this section here, if we have multiple B-roll segments that we're adding on top of the original, then we'll have to dynamically build out this inputs array with as many different file URLs as needed. And then we'll also need to adjust the filters. Now, the way I handled that was in Airtable. And if we look at this automation here, we've got some code here that you're free to pause and copy that will automatically build out that entire JSON to build out that dynamic JSON payload that we can send over to the NCA Toolkit. Now, this might look a little bit daunting, but this was all generated by AI. We simply knew how to build the JSON, and we were able to tell the AI what code we needed, and it was able to write it out for us. And then we just have it here. And then in our automation here, we pass that JSON into the webhook and pass it directly into the NCA Toolkit request. So you can see right here, instead of passing that big JSON, we're building it out inside of Airtable. And then we pass that JSON to the webhook, which then passes it to the NCA Toolkit. Now, one final thing I did want to show you was this N8N trick for better handling test and production URLs in your webhooks. So I was showing you this webhook system here that branches off into all these different API calls. And if we look inside here, what you're going to find is that we have a test URL and a production URL for this webhook. Now, this is actually really smart because that way you have a different URL for testing and for production. It's actually a really smart thing. But the pain is if you hard code this test URL into your Airtable automations, when you go to activate this automation, it's no longer going to work because in order for the test URLs to work, you have to test the workflow. So when you go into production and you activate it, all of these scripts will need to be updated, which is just a major pain. And then if you were to go back to test mode, you'd have to come back into all of your automations and convert them back to the test URL. Back and forth as you were in testing and then in production. So what we did was to build this simple table here, which is a variables table where we put in the webhooks that are associated with the automations that we're using. In this case, we have the video actions, and then in this case, we have the segment actions. So what we did was we dropped in these two URLs right here, but we noticed the only real difference between the test and the production is this dash test. So we have this variable here called production equals true. And when it's true, whenever we use these URLs, we do a simple string replace and we pull out the test. So if I were to come back into one of these automations and check this little script here, you can see what we're doing here is we're grabbing the variables table here. We're bringing in all of the rows that are in our variables table. And then we look at that production variable. And if it's true, you can see what we're doing here is we're doing a quick string replace. We're taking that test and we're removing it. And then we're passing it along to the next scripts. So as this script runs, we can pass it the webhook. And this is going to be the test or the production webhook based off of this value here. So if I move this to false, then it won't do the string replace and it will call the test webhook. And then when I run the test workflow, it'll pass through and we can test things. And then when I need to go back to production, I can come back here and I can just move it back to true. And then it's going to start sending the webhook to our production URL when these automations are active. So there you go. Make sure to check out the No Code Architects community. I'd love to see you there. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you on the next one.